Yeah, hi, good afternoon to one and all, and warm welcome to all our participants who joined us today for the session Code of Ethics. Welcome to our learned speaker Abhijiti Sanzgiri, our president Percy Amansariwala, IIA India Bombay Chapter, to this very interactive section, and I'm sure this will be going to be a very insightful session. So, friends, before I start and I talked about the modalities of the session today, let me introduce our speaker today, Abhijiti Sanzgiri. Abhijit is a chartered accountant and LLB by profession. He has 30 plus years of experience in industry and in practice. Currently, he's a practice and he's a senior partner at AP Sanzgiri and Company. And past he has worked in the industry as a chief of audit, and he served as the CFO for a large listed company. He's a seasoned speaker, has spoke on more than 500 seminars since last more than 20 years as a various professional forums, corporates, and the management school. And he is a firm believer. He's firm believer into risk to de-risk. So that is his specialty. So, and now I would like to introduce our president, IIA Bombay Chapter, Percy Amansariwala. And luckily, he is also ethics and compliance professionals, almost more than 22 years of experience. And he is currently working with a large multinational company. So, welcome, Percy. Welcome, Abhijit. And I'm Chetan Thakkar, your moderator for the day. I'm also close to almost 25-year experience into audit. I'm a chartered accountant, certified internal auditor, certified risk manager, certified IT manager, certified financial market, and done some management courses in Harvard and IIM Ahmedabad. So, warm welcome to all. And broadly, the session will be divided into, we'll be talking about the technical session by Abhijit ji. Then there would be the poll questions we will be in between. We have an open mic. We will have an open mic session whereby any participant would like to share their experience on the ethics they come across in the career so far. They are open to share with all our colleagues here. And then finally, we will have a question and answer session whereby our subject matter expert Abhijit ji will share his views on those questions. So now I request Percy to set the tone. And before we have a formal technical session started by Abhijit ji and open remarks for me. So Percy, over to you. Please set the tone for the session today. Thank you so much. And thank you one and all, please.
Thank you, Chetan, for the kind introduction for me and Abhijit. So, friends, this is the first time ever, IIA India Bombay chapter is hosting an ethics session, which is free of charge, because traditionally ethics is mandatory requirement by the IIA. So it has always been the endeavor to, make some money out of it. But this time, first time ever, we have launched this complimentary session for the Code of Ethics by the Bombay chapter and IIA India. So welcome. But even if this is not a mandatory CPE requirement, it is very essential for professionals like us in the internal audit, risk management, forensic space to always be time and again reminded of what is the ethics which we are bound by, and how should we proceed in situations, in ethical dilemma situations, etc. I can just share an experience of mine, when I was an internal audit team, and then I was asked to investigate a whistleblower complaint which had come against the person who had initially hired me. So it was the chief internal auditor who had then moved into a different function. So and the allegation was against him. So, and I was required to undertake this investigation. So I immediately brought it up to the global team handling this complaint, and it was very well accepted and understood that I should not be a part of that investigation team. from an objectivity purpose, from an independence purpose. And even if there would not be an unconscious bias in this investigation, it would always be a subject matter of debate, going forward, that whether this person should have been in this investigation team, especially since he was one of the persons whom this person had hired. So with that, this is something which you need to constantly think of, and think of your actions, whether they are right in the given situation, and always go by your conscience and do what is right, and what you think is the right choice. So that is all I had to share, this instance of objectivity and independence, which is also stressed upon by the IPPF, by the IIA. With this, without further ado, I will hand over back to Chetan, so that I don't steal the thunder away from Abhijit and the session. Thank you.
Thank you so much, President, for setting the tone and shared your practical experience about one of the core principles set by IPPF as objectivity, and I will take it forward. So, so friends, before Abhijit start and getting into technicality on the subject, see, the word ethics is very easy and simple to speak, but it's very difficult to practice at a time. So, what is all about ethics? Is it the integrity? Is it the trust? Is it the code of conduct? Is that we are talking about honesty, compliance, moral, or is it ethical behavior? Are we talking about transparency, or is it something else? So our subject matter expert today, who is a learned speaker, will let us know what is ethics all about, and he will definitely touch upon the very important things. It is whose responsibility is ethics? Is it the individual employee responsibility? Is it responsibility of senior management or top management or board of directors or other stakeholders? So let's understand from the subject expert what whose responsibility is all about the ethics. So, friends, as you all know that to have a uniformity and standardization, the code of ethics has been set by International Professional Practice Framework by IIA US Inc. It has got four major principles: integrity, objectivity, confidentiality, and competency. So with this, I would also not like to talk more about that since we have our own learned speaker. So I request Abhijit to take over session from us and enlighten all of us with his insightful, practical. I have seen his presentation. He has a lot of practical things to say about this, to clarify some of the myths we have it so far so good. He will have a lot of case studies. We will have a poll questions, and he is there to support and enlighten us more on this subject, which is easy to speak, as I said very earlier, but it's very difficult to practice at a time. So thank you, Abhijit ji. Agree to have the session for our IA members, and over to Abhijit ji. Thank you so much. Please, Abhijit, over to you, please.
So thank you, Chetan, thank you, Percy, and thank you, I, for giving me this opportunity to share my experiences. As you said, ethics is a topic which everybody knows. And when I'm being asked to speak on ethics, it's always what should I speak on, because ethics is all about doing. It's all about action. It's all about walking the talk, as you say. So before we speak on this, I would like this to be as practical as possible, because all of us, like Percy had his experiences, all of us would have had his or her brush with all the ethical dilemmas or the challenges which we would have faced throughout our career. I think we face issues practically every day-to-day life. So just to know the audience much better, or just to get the perspective, I think we'll start with just full questions, just to get the mood of the room, and start with something different. So Menas, can you have the poll questions? So the first question is, how often have you gone against your moral principles? It's always, often, sometimes, rarely, or never.
The poll is on for next 10 seconds more. Everyone is requested to participate in the poll. I have received only 50% responses so far. I'm displaying the results of the poll.
Okay.
Chetan, you can read that out.
Yeah, sure. See, it's very interesting result and most expected. The question was, how often have you gone against your moral principles? So 46% highest has said we rarely gone against the moral. So that's really great to hear that. And 39% has said we never get into the compromising on the moral principles. So results are very positive vibes. We start with Abhijit ji. So it's a good sign. Our professionals are setting the highest tone. And
So 85% of the people who have polled have rarely or never gone against their moral principles, and I think that's very great to know. I think, and that's all internal auditors have very high standards. I believe so. That's a good perspective to start from. Very interesting. I think expected. Yes. So can we have the next question? If the company you're working with is indulging in unethical practices, would you quit immediately, be upset and want to quit, but bear and stick it till you get a new job? Indifferent to it as long as you're not doing it? Raise your voice, insist change in these practices and ensure the change is done. So, Manas, can you share the second question?
Yes, I'm collecting the responses. So far, only 23% audience has responded.
So let's
So request
wait.
everyone to participate.
Yes, so results are out, and it is also very happy to take a note. 79% of our participants have raised their voice and ensure that practices have been changed. So that is very healthy, and really be proud to be part of the fraternity as a JRC and IA professional. Abhijit, you can see the results. I think we have already set the higher benchmark, which the tone came from almost our participants. Over to Abhijit, please.
Fine. So I think very heartening to see that you're speaking to a much enlightened and then highly ethical audience. So one, all professionals, all senior professionals, all knowing a lot about this subject. I'm just here to kickstart the brainstorming, have a conversation rather than setting up some talk on this, be as practical as possible, be as less technical as I can, because this subject is hardly technical. But just to start on the theory part of it, ethics is, and that to wrap it up very quickly, ethics is derived, as everybody knows, from the Greek word ethos, which means character or morals. It's all about principles. It's all about a desired and acceptable conduct. It's all about behavior. It's all about the good, bad, and the ugly, the right or the wrong. So ethics, again, the 7 principles of ethics, if you look at it from a very macro perspective and a very generic perspective, not from the IA perspective, one is the beneficence of the safety and the well-being of your clients, not necessarily applicable in an IA, but yes, you need to ensure the well-being of the clients, non-malfeasance, not causing intentional harm to clients, autonomy and confidentiality, yes, respecting your clients' rights, their opinions, social justice, providing services in a fair and an equitable manner, procedural justice, which is fairness and transparency in the process in which you carry about, veracity is conforming to facts, accuracy, habitual truthfulness, key word in this habitual truthfulness, so being truthful by habit, and fidelity or being faithful to a cause or belief in which you justly or rightly believe in. So broad 7 principles of ethics, not going too much into it. Again, ethics is also looked at from 3 parts. One is a deontological ethics based on action, which is focused on the means. So how you actually go about doing it. Teleological, which is based on the consequences or the end result. And virtue based, which is based on the person rather than his action or results, and how he conducts himself throughout his life, throughout his career. It's based on values rather than looking at a solitary act in incidents, maybe an aberration, and somebody who's trusting the process, living by the process, and possessing and living by his virtues. So as Chetan said, a lot of virtues could come in, which could mean you are ethical, is either justice, courage, humility, kindness, patience, prudence, sincerity, compassion, generosity, honesty, loyalty, forgiveness, respect, gentleness, reliability, temperance, empathy. I think if you look at non-professionals, they would give a very high attribute of empathy as far as ethics is concerned. Responsibility, yes, love, fairness, and tolerance. So all of these would be great virtues to have in, and maybe something which would so all these adjectives, if you add to ethics, or what you call as ethical leadership or ethical way of working, will all be virtue based, value based. I just pause for a minute just to take your feedback. Anything else you would like to add, you could put it in the chat, maybe giving about another 20 seconds for that. Any other virtue you feel is missed out or you would quickly like to add? Anything, Chetan, you would add offhand to this, because you had set the ball rolling on this?
Sure, sir. Sure. I appreciate, sir. Let's our participant have anything in their mind apart from the code of conduct, trust, transparency, integrity, moral. What comes to their mind when we talk about ethics? When they hear the word ethics, what comes to their mind? So I request participant, they can insert in the chat box. So
Sure.
for the benefit of all, let's have a collective wisdom speak together. So this is not monotonous session like only we two are speaking. We would encourage you to speak at every opportunity we get to interact with you, since we are having a virtual session. So we appreciate you can put on your thoughts on the word you understand as ethics. So it will be good to hear from you, friends. Please have your in the chat box what you think of ethics is all about. What is ethics means to you? I will say in just one word. So somebody has written authenticity. Yeah. Somebody says integrity. Somebody says trust, moral, compliance at work. Can we have both those? Sure. What are things, what means to you ethics, which you can describe in a couple of words? So we are happy to hear that. Okay. I think most of the things are you have already taken care, and there are a few other things which our participants shared it. So I'll appreciate Abhijit ji. It's good to go. I think your this has covered everything. What is ethics all about? So back to you, Abhijit ji. You may please proceed ahead.
So let me take this ahead. So the four principles of ethics, which is laid down in a code of conduct, starting with integrity, meaning honesty, trust, responsibility, objectivity, having complete transparency, no bias and interest conflicts. I think example clearly given by Percy earlier. Confidentiality, respect for privacy and value of information. A lot of insider trading issues would come for respect for privacy and value of information. Competency, I think the biggest I would say the principle here, all professionals would need to upskill, reskill all their knowledge, experience, moving towards excellence. Always, I could say a never-ending target. It's learning never stops. We are always learning all the time from everybody. Maybe at times what not to do, how to do. It's maybe the reverse mentoring also. You learn a lot from students. In fact, a lot from the younger kids, how tech savvy and maybe wondering a 4-year-old kid is picking up a mobile and just going all over it, and without even knowing what the keyboards are or able to read and write can operate something. So a lot to learn from everybody. So integrity, objectivity, confidentiality, competency, not taking too much of time again on this. There's a fifth principle added by the ICAI, professional behavior, your reputation, how you carry the reputation of yourself and of your profession. I think the motto of pride of service over professional gain is something very proudly which the ICAI uses it as their motto. And one acronym which I had made about ethics is everyone.
Sir, can I request you to hold down, sir? Can you make the presentation in the presentation mode, please? I'm getting requests from the participants. Can we make it FI and having a presentation mode slides? So yeah, picture looks bigger for all, sir. Thank you so much. Thank you. Sorry, sir. Please carry on, sir.
So ethics, simple acronym. Everyone's responsible. So it's not the responsibility of the senior management, or it's the responsibility of somebody in the junior management. It's a holistic, integrated. Everyone is responsible, as is the case. Is risk management is everybody's business. Same as with ethics. It's everybody throughout the organization is responsible for spreading ethics. Again, trust begets trust. What goes around comes around, round and round. So trust people. People love to do business with people they trust. I think the respect is much more there. Honesty is always and will always be the best policy. Integrity, absolutely non-negotiable. Compliance is not just with the letter of the law, but also with the spirit of the law. And speak out. Speak out with the courage of conviction. Silence isn't always golden. So, just a small acronym on ethics. Now the challenges, which again given in the code of conduct. Challenge of self-interest. First, maybe at various places where, especially in the sales business, you'll obviously have selling, because if he has a variable pay, and that variable pay is linked to performance, then obviously if there is a performance linked bonus, there may be a tendency to cut corners, or maybe at times when results matter, maybe window dressing, everything of accounts, all the fuzzy or the brilliant accounting concepts or modes which come into play. So self-interest is one challenge. The second challenge, advocacy, where at times you are advising your clients in litigation, you are advising your clients in resolution of disputes, clear case of conflict of interest. Also at times you've held a position, and that position held so firm that even if you're wrong, you're not able to change from that position. So you are advocating a certain stand, and circumstances have changed, times have changed, still you're not changing it. So advocacy is again a challenge. Familiarity, either it's trusting the client too much, it's a bias due to closeness, and this I've seen not just in the senior audit fraternity, it could also be in the teams. So again, where let's say if you are in an internal audit function and you are auditing other functions where you are having something adverse against your basic colleagues, or with somebody whom you share your tiffin, or you travel together, and maybe then putting somebody in an awkward situation by commenting something. I think this is something where familiarity or the closeness bias you need to be clearly aware of. I think it doesn't boil down even to the senior. Yes, it would even boil down to closeness bias at the audit staff level. So that's something where one needs to even look at, and how do you overcome this? Again, intimidation, very common. Threat to change auditors. I clearly remember about 20 years ago, we'd gone in for pitching in for an statutory audit, and even before the discussion took place, you had the management telling us that we will consider you for the audit only if you give us a guarantee that you will not qualify our accounts. Now, this is something even before you are accepting an assignment, you don't even know where you are heading into, and when somebody asks you such a question or places such a task to you, I think it's better not to accept it. I think, but yes, the threat to change auditors if you would qualify, or you would basically point out some facts is very common. I think one needs to guard against that. I have noted various cases where in some audits I found adverse issues, and I have actually not been appointed next year. So not very surprising. Yes, that's a threat, but as you said, it starts, it ends with you. It's tough, but it always will pay you back in the long run. So these threats very common. I think in an open mic session, I think each one would have faced these threats various points of time. Intimidation in a different manner. So maybe your senior coming to you, maybe when I was an audit head, issues where the CEO coming and saying, well, this is the audit committee, you will have to manage. So I don't want any surprises. If there is any issue, it's you'll have to deal with it. It's your problem. So technically, it's the issues is ideally the business of the risk owner or the functional head who's responsible. So if you get uh, messages like this down the line from the seniors, I think again it would be a threat, it would be a challenge. Then the self-review. Yeah.
So before you come, I would just like to add on, as you rightly said, but if you look at last 1 year, we are seeing there are a lot of resignation happening from auditor. So I think we are setting a good ethics and good integrity is on high side. So that is other way around. So it's a good sign for we as a fraternity, as a JRC professionals. So I think it's a good to go.
Yes.
Just a small request to you. Just a small request to you because I'm seeing there is some bandwidth issue and voice still disturbed. So could you just close the videos for some time? Because your voice gets because of the bandwidth issue. I could see that I'm getting requests also. So please keep it. Even I am also keeping my video off. We will keep our presentation on and discussion. Once bandwidth we are back to normal, we could please so request to you, sir. Thank you so much. So sir, that is what I was talking to you. So this is a good sign. We have seen the number of resignation happen from auditor because they don't want to compromise on the integrity and they have a good ethical values, so they don't mind resigning it. So we have seen many cases at a very large corporates, banks. We have seen that. So what is your view, sir, on this?
So there are two things. One, yes, obviously ethics is paying in the long run. The second is your regulators are getting tougher and tougher, and the regulators are actually so in banks you will see that the regulators are directly picking up the phone and just calling you at any point of time. In fact, I've seen the regulator at times being a whistleblower and telling you, okay, these are the complaints, anonymous complaints which we have got, and we would like to you to investigate this. Again, the NCA has set up a special team. I know chartered accountants who are working in the Ministry of Corporate Affairs, and their job is only to look at basically auditors who have given their resignations. Again, what's the reason for resigning suddenly in between and without stating the reason? Again, wherever an auditor has resigned and somebody else has taken his position and accounts are given a clean check, you would definitely face inquiry either from the peer review board or from the NFRE. So things are getting tougher and tougher for all the statutory auditors, the internal auditors. Yes, the
Yes,
directors, there is a lot of pressure on them. A lot of independent directors actually independently discharging their role quite, I would say, not just courageously and competently, but completely ethically and asking right questions and at times very straight, pointed questions which could be embarrassing for the management. And so at all levels, at the CAE level and the stat auditor level, I think intimidation is no longer a threat unless it's basically somebody very fresh into practice or even not in that case also. So as you rightly said, yes, going down and down. And then maybe the challenges of self-review where you act both as an accountant, as an auditor, or you are certifying something else, or initially, yes, when there were not very clear instructions. So doing some other assignments apart from the stat audit where there is a clear conflict of interest, or having technically some other ways in tweaking this, so maybe complying with the letter of the law but not with the spirit. So that's all the challenges which you have, and it's up to you how you maintain your esteem, your trust, your respect. I think it's all about your competency, credibility, your trust, and the values and the value you bring on the table. So I use another acronym for it is
absolutely,
CCTV.
sir. Well summarized. Well summarized, sir.
CCTV is your competency, credibility, your trust, and the value and the values you bring on the table. I think that's what is for a great professional. And again, the last principle which specifically the ICAI is put in is the motto of personal pride before the pride of the profession before personal gain. So that's something which one needs to guard
Absolutely.
about. Yeah.
Absolutely, sir. Well summarized, and thank you for putting on more tone on the subject, sir. Thank you so much. We can go ahead, please.
So again, so let's quickly look at various types of ethical issues which you could have in an organization, which maybe I've seen over the years. One is exploitation abuse. You have all your laws on prevention of sexual harassment. You have all whistleblowers to speak against this. In a lot of organizations, I've seen for a number of years, not a single complaint anywhere. Or maybe this also being misused for maybe settling some scores, or maybe issues where you don't get promotions or are not rated satisfactorily. So something where one needs a lot of awareness, training, again, handling these issues very I would say it's a very sensitive area. One needs to have real experience in basically addressing these issues. Again, harassment, discrimination, quite common. I think crony capitalism is the word which is used in an economic context. But yes, you would have your favorites here, and this is something again which is the part and parcel. So yes, need your godfather, sugar daddies all around, and they are there. So just that's something where maybe we could again at the end just somebody could share his experiences or his views on how to go about that. Again, lying, very common. If you make inquiries from management, that's one of the tools which you are using as an audit procedure, and you would get the auditee or somebody who's supposed to give a representation completely lying and just being completely unethical. Again, your policy and procedure violations happening commonplace. In a lot of cases, I've seen the SOPs being drafted in a completely utopian manner, as this is a best practice to follow. But in ideal situations, this rarely happens. So if there is a violation, it's actually a violation. But what's the tolerance limit for the violation? What's the deviation which is allowed? Is there any policy around it, and how you would treat it, and how would you have a policy which is practical and workable at the same time? So that's something you need to check around. Lobbying and gifts, again, something unavoidable. Technically, very early during my articleship days, I used to see a lot of these cases, especially in organizations during festivals. Especially Diwali was one of the major festivals where this kind of stuff used to happen. Again, something speed money or this part which is there, not very uncommon. Yes, reduced greatly. A lot of people, a lot of organizations have a strict no gifts, no lobbying policy. Yes, but this is one challenge which you constantly face. Again, a different way where a lot of vendors would give you awards, and again, each one would have his perspective and views around that. But yes, that's again another way, or maybe the ways where you are selected to attend their conference somewhere, which could be uh, technically in the nature of a holiday. Again, seen cases of this donations, especially political donations, nepotism, again, something very common. Anything you would like to add, Chetan, to this?
Dostar, I think you covered. Sir, you would like to share some more views on nepotism? See, we have seen the nepotism recent past, last 1 years, maybe on a lighter mode in the film industry. But how could you relate this to the our profession as a GRC profession, sir? Would you like to throw more light on that?
I just throw the light in sometime on this. We will go on this a bit later. But I would definitely like to throw more on this. So yes, this is something which is happening quite regularly, the policy of favoring your friends, your relatives. Technically, uh, it's all about rapport. It's all about relationships. You've seen somebody leaving an organization and the entire team leaves with him and they're joining some other organization. As long as you're favoring somebody which who are actually competent to do it, it's fine. But if it's you just to have your yes man in the business, or have no divergence of views or opinions, then again, as you would say, it's completely not just an ethical issue, but it could be an productivity and an efficiency issue also. So that's something one needs to guard about. If
Excellent,
you're
sir. Thank you.
getting
Thank you
in.
so much for clarifying and relating how it is related on as you rightly said, through the favors. So how it can connected in ethical values. Thank you so much for throwing the more lights on this types of this. Thank you so much.
You have all your accounting manipulations, the evergreenings and the pivot dressings. A typical checklist in a bank audit was that, have you come across cases where there have been deposits at the end of the year and they have been subsequently withdrawn, and cases where the managers phoning you, so could you just give us certain deposits because we have a year-end target and that's not met, or where you have a cash credit account and you have an unutilized sanction limit which is there, managers calling you to withdraw the amounts so that the advances get increased, and it shows up there. So a lot of ways in which you could do that, booking year-end sales. You have cases where some of the companies would just dump their products on the dealers at the year end to show up the sales. So you could have anything where maybe in one quarter you could just dump all the losses which you can in the entire year in one quarter and show a very poor performance, and just, if it's a listed company, just pump down the share prices, and maybe in the next quarter you can show a great improvement, and then you could use this inside information to buy or sell before these activities are booked, and then maybe again buy it at the start of the next quarter when you are sure that you are going to make a good profit. So again, a lot of these, there could be number of ways and number of means, and you could just go on and on this. Fraud, corruption, again, as I said, fraud, again, an evergreen topic. You could talk endlessly on that. Again, on the fraud triangle, the fraud square, the fraud diamond, whatever shape, sizes you could give it. You talk of opportunity, you talk of rationalization, you talk of the greed which is there, insider trading, selling, very common. Again, I remember a situation where there were a lot of ethical violations when we were auditors, especially on mis-selling. And when we had asked the sales head at the time of closing our audit, he was very clear with the fact that if I don't mis-sell, I will not be able to sell. So the issue was, is it that you just can't sell if you do it completely ethically? Again, I have seen various cases in the financial services where the suitability and the appropriateness when selling a product going in for a complete toss here. So mis-selling something very rampant. Yes, a lot of curbs put in place, a lot of actions done in, and this is greatly reduced. So what I used to see about 10 years ago, this is not even a tenth or a fraction of what it was earlier. But yes, it's a known risk, a known ethical issue. Again, you would have money laundering. Again, very common. Again, you could spend hours on this topic discussing. You uh, just had cases in the bank where the regulator has pointed out cases specifically telling us as auditors to verify, where you have somebody who's a wholesale dealer in X depositing cash worth about 50 crores in his account. You have somebody who's a wine shop depositing another similar crores amounts in his account. So all of these whether they are genuine sales or they are actually used to launder money. Again, demonetization was a classic case where once it was known that up to 2 lakhs you could deposit money and nobody would maybe ask you questions. Every Tom, Dick and Harry depositing 2 lakhs in his accounts. I know outside Churchgate Station, a lot of taxi guys used to actually in the night give their loose cash to people and for a premium exchange it for the notes which were banned. So again, this is something which keeps on happening. Uh, yes, there are ways and means in which we could prevent that. A lot of laws have been tightened. The FATCA, the CRS of this world are coming up. Various alerts, various systems in it, regulations keeping on tightening. But these happen again. The next a clear favorite of all our accountants and specifically at the audit committees where you specifically run through the related party transactions and whether these have been an arm's length, and you have various means and I would say creative, innovative ways to beat around that and still indulge in such transactions, and you still have various promoters, especially promoters of a certain genre and a certain view who think that when I am taking a funding or I am doing a transaction, it's for my complete group as such. So I can clearly indulge in this. So yes, these are guys who would like to do this, and they would have their own set of professionals advising them on how to be in compliance with the letter of the law, throwing the spirit completely for a toss. Again, executive compensation, again an issue. You have your nomination committees specifically reviewing that and maybe having a look at what all this is. Any additions, Chetan, at this stage?
No, that's so
Nisha?
fairly enough. So fairly, I think it is well understood. Wherever I feel we need more details or try to get relevance to our participants, I will pose in, sir. Thank you so much. You may please carry on.
Sure. So now this is something where, as an auditor, I would have faced multiple issues on this at various points of time. So the first is asked to either grab an issue or either asked to dilute an issue. I think most of us would either in the capacity of internal auditor or in stat auditor when you're qualifying something would have had this issue crop up. Now, I had a CEO and he had an interesting suggestion to me. He says is basically we've been appointing you as auditors to find mistakes. And he gave me a great English quote is to err is human and to forgive divine. So he says mistakes happen. So I'm committing a mistake. I'm not doing it intentionally. And if you pointed it out and I have rectified it, then why are you reporting an error which is rectified by me? And if there is a gap in the system, then obviously you as internal auditors are there out to help me to ensure that the system is correct. So why are you reporting it? If I've closed everything, you report on something which is open. Even something which is open, he was of the view that I need some time to close it because this is inherently there since a long time. Unfortunately, the auditors before you didn't detect it. So this is a case where do I hold something against the previous auditors all along for not telling me this issue much earlier? And I'm not taking anything against them, but why don't you give me time to close it? Valid point. I think each one would have its own justification. I think what we had done at that stage is a wire media. If something was really with the consent of the audit committee, we had set realistic timelines for the management to actually close these issues. We used to report this to the audit committee, bring to their notice if something was really high risk issues was something which we used to bring out, and okay, these are issues which there is something which is being done. So what we need to look at is the progress done. What is the intent behind the management? Is it something which is a gap, and they are trying to leave it with intent to justify some achievement with where something like the end not justifying the ways in which to do it. So each one, as I said, is a matter of professional judgment. It's contextual, it's situational. But yes, you'll have various cases to drop or dilute an audit issue, and each one will have to take its own call. Ideally, if technically the intent of an auditor is just not to drop an issue, even if it's a trivial issue, and point out various trivial issues, I think that's really bad. And at one point of time, when I was an internal auditor, I was clearly embarrassed by the statutory auditor in one case coming out with maybe a letter which was addressed by the corporate communications team, and there were some spelling mistakes in the letter, and he had come out on that letter, and he had shown it in the audit committee as something which actually didn't concern him, but was something very embarrassing to a lot of us. So somewhere, are you exceeding your brief? And that's again sensitive points where what you drop, what you dilute, at the sense what you even bring out on the table to something really embarrass, or bringing out an issue where you've not even told the auditee that this is what. So giving him a draft report or telling him that this is the issue which I would be raising at the audit committee. So again, each one may have his own view whether that's ethical to do it. We could again brainstorm on this quite a lot. As I said, various issues. So that's why quite just in a just manner kept an open mic session for some time for people to share their views. Again, items scoped out of audit. So something very clearly scoped out, something scoped out where really there could be issues. So they really don't want you to find out those issues. Again, something where as concurrent auditors in banks, when I was on the practice side, credit appraisal was never given in the scope. Now, credit appraisal is the key. If it's something, a bad account comes in, there is no way whatever monitoring and follow up and whatever actions you take can help you recover the money unless you ample collateral security. But yes, executive compensation, again, that's an area which is at times completely scoped out of audit, especially in banking and other fields. So yes, so that's again where that's where an independent auditor will have to play his role. The CA will have to put his foot down and ensure these items remain in the audit. Again, stat auditor, there is nothing which somebody can stop him from checking any area. So especially when he has to report on the ROs, or maybe in a bank, he has to give his long form audit report. So there's nothing which technically is put out. But yes, on an external internal audit, or maybe even in an internal audit, the scope which is decided by the CEO, or maybe the audit committee has agreed, that there could be something scoped out. And again, you might have Chetan also, or in Percy also, many of us giving some examples to illustrate this. Non-reporting of errors rectified, again, this will also come from the familiarity bias which I have stated, or there were in one organization, as an external auditor, I was clearly told not to report on errors which were rectified during course of audit, because he says you as a concurrent auditor, your duty is to close issues once noted, and they don't what you have to report are just open items which are not resolved. So something which is specifically scoped out, and something which you are not asked to do. So unless as a regulator specifically asking you to do, unless there is somebody who's legally bound asking you to do, yours is a contractual assignment. Technically, whether you would, again, the issue is whether you would accept such assignment, or you would ideally say yes, okay, this is for me, and contractual assignment, and I would go as per the contract, and I would very clearly state in the report that this is something where I've been not asked to do. So many cases which are rectified during course of audit have specifically not been reported as per our appointment letter. Again, audit committee, is it an audit committee meeting or is it an audit committee management? So what exactly is put before the audit committee management? Is it something which the audit committee would like to hear, which is good to hear? Or is it something where you really want to point out something which is something which would be really useful for them to know? Again, the threat of intimidation would come very strongly here, where your CEO or somebody very senior would put pressure on, as I said again, on dropping and diluting the issue. So all these challenges would be faced at various points of time by auditors. I clearly remember in one organization there was certain issues relating to this was a foreign bank, and there were issues relating to executive compensation and certain issues on TDS which had not been disclosed, and suddenly this and they had given us representations to the effect that there is no other case or there is no other claim going on which would have an impact on the account, and suddenly on the day we were about to sign, maybe divine luck or what you could say, there was a huge news item in the papers concerning this bank. I was really surprised on how this item was leaked out, and it had come very clearly on the newspapers about this issue. And when we asked the management about the incorrect representation they did, and about the fact that what is this and we want this information to be known to us, then they had said that this concerns their senior management who are expats, and this is not a part of your scope, and whatever representation we have given is fine, you have to accept it. We had put our foot strongly down and said we would, if we're not getting this information, we would refuse to sign and we would clearly resign. Now this was about 20 years back when resignations were not very common, but ideally, as you said, you need the courage of conviction to stand by what you feel is right. I think when the question of resignation came in, and they also never expected the auditors to take such a tough stand, I think that's where they melted down and brought all facts on the table, and there was a huge demand, and it was a huge contingent liability which they had not disclosed, and we had to ideally uh, qualify their accounts for that. So at times you will get into such sort of issues where you will not be given information despite all your checks on especially contingent liability as an area where I've always over the career, both as an internal and external auditor, faced issues where these have somehow been conveniently not brought to the notice of the auditors. Again, the practice of issuing a separate report for the management and a separate report for the regulators and the audit committee, I really don't know how ethical or unethical it is. So something is the management asking you, okay, this is what you report at the audit committee, and this is what you give us separately for the management, because this is something we don't want it to come in the public eye. Again, we could debate on this for a long time. Again, situational, again, contextual, again, a matter of audit judgment on how you would go about it. Very sensitive issue. Maybe yes, if there are any specific questions on that, I would take up, because these are something which issues which come up and you would have to face on a daily basis. But generally, unless it's something in public interest to do so, it's especially now brought it out in our standards of auditing in key audit memorandum, where unless it's the point of stating that issue in the public domain is so adverse that it's better to give it by way of a separate management letter, or in this case not stated as a can, and if it's so specifically required by regulation, then it's something where you could do it. But yes, again, this is a very contentious issue. So as I said, what's your KRA? If I've seen discussions with my colleagues where they were said that yes, that KRA, yes, there is a KRA written for a audit position or for a CAE or head of audit, but the clear mandate coming from the CEO is, I don't want any surprises, I don't want any issues being brought out at the audit committee, which are ideally something which would embarrass us. So we don't want any surprises at the audit committee. So this is something which would be a challenge again, very commonly faced by many people.
Absolutely, well, very well said, sir. Very well said. And I think most of the chief auditor or CROs or maybe ethical chief officer, I think practically they face this. As you rightly say, the top management CEO, CFO doesn't want all the pain issues or the gray issues or something which very sensitized. They don't want to bring it to the audit committee. Want to settle much before that and show the glossy picture. I think this is not really very uncommon. I absolutely brought out it very well, sir. And importantly, very nicely put in about this audit committee meeting. Rather, you said audit committee to manage. So, is it really in the spirit, or it is just in the form as a sort of formality we are doing sometime, just having 10-15 minutes meeting? They could really give us the right time, tone to set the right issues. So, excellent, sir. I absolutely endorse your views, and most of our participants have witnessed this at the senior level. Thank you, sir. Okay, please carry on.
So the other point where your independence comes into play is that functionally you may be reporting to the audit committee, but administratively you don't report to the audit committee, and your performance is rated by somebody who is in the senior management, technically either the CFO or the CEO. So here there could be cases where there could be clear conflicts of interest, and how independent your independent auditor is, your independent director is, and how strongly you are backed up by him as far as your working is concerned is something which again would be a case again where you would have.
Sir, I would like to add on. You could go to the previous slide. As you rightly said, this is the risk from chief audit or chief risk officer. Even that is a risk from even independent director also. At the time, they don't also speak when top management and the MD or those are the part of the audit committee. They also don't speak out much or don't raise any queries, even although they have a lot, because they also want to retain their position on those large listed companies. They would like to, have their positions in those listed company. So at a time, they also don't speak. It's not we as auditor. It is dilemma on the other side of the table. That is from independent or director side, sir. That's what I have observed. I'm sure you must have also observed on
So
this.
Chetan, your question on nepotism is would also apply to an independent director, right?
Yeah.
So really a lot of independent directors could be the friends of the CEO or the promoters. So that's where ideally, if it's a classic example,
Yeah.
which is one of in your IIA is if the auditor is playing golf with the CEO every morning, then will he report against his best friend?
Certainly not. Certainly not. So these are
your
the, as you rightly said, these are the practical issues. How we as a auditor, we as a fraternity, has to come out and, as you rightly said, this requires the courage of conviction, and you should be bold enough to pose the questions on this. So yeah, that's challenge we are facing in day out, sir. With the very rightly put on, sir. Very rightly said so. Thank you,
So,
Abhijit.
so what we used to have via media is what you say the golden midway path is that yes, everyone makes mistakes, and the management as well as the independent directors or even the regulators are aware that yes, it's in the complexity and the volume of transactions, some errors will happen. The key is whether these errors are intentional or these are out of oversight. And if these are out of
Absolutely.
oversight, then why did it go wrong? and what are you doing to ensure that they don't happen wrong, or they are rectified at the right time. So what is the process gap? What is the lapse? What is the control you are instituting to ensure? So is the design not there, or is the implementation an issue? So set it right. So what we used to do is, from time to time, we used to, every quarter or maybe on a half yearly basis, or where feasible on a yearly basis, just take them on something of our control maturity curve journey, or where we are on the risk maturity curve right at the start of the year to the end of the year, or maybe highlight, as you say, what were the number of issues which were being bought out, what are the issues which are being closed out, how quickly are the issues being closed out, how updated we on the risk registers, or how many trainings we have done to sensitize employees. So there were a lot of parameters on which we had rated audit efficiency, or maybe, as we said, a lot of what we can do is on one slide. So there's a lot of things which we as internal auditors or as professionals can really do for an organization as far as ethics is concerned. So we could really have a look at that. So some causes why this could happen is maybe lack of models. Again, target pressure, opportunities. Again, this is one of the root causes for mis-selling and being in the financial services industry for long. I have faced these issues so much that technically our head HR was so fed up with this that he had instructed, out of sheer frustration, that all the sales guys who are there, you just put a screensaver when they put on their PC that I will not mis-sell, and they should flash, keep on flashing every time they open their PC. So this was at a point of time so acute that this is where you're working in a variable pay system, and where your performance, especially in its sales link, I think the very nature of your compensation will drive you towards these issues. Again, the skewed risk reward ratio, very clear in favor of the fraudsters, and very clear in being unethical, uh, as it's what's the penalty. So we, in an organization where I was auditing, there was a certain regulatory norm, and that regulatory norm insisted on certain things to be done, and if that thing was not done, there was a minor penalty. So the initial penalty was about 5,000 rupees, then it got increased after a year to 10,000 by the regulator, it became 50,000, became a lakh, then it became 5 lakhs, in year 6 it became 10 lakhs. Now, even at 10 lakhs, it was worthwhile for the organization to commit that mistake, because the revenue which they were getting, or the profits which they were earning from not complying with that act, was 100 times more than the penalty that they were putting. It was only when it was continuously running for about 6 or 7 years and this penalty went up to $1 million, then that's where the reputational risk issue came, and one independent director firmly put his foot down and insisted that this activity be stopped forthwith, and this practice should be discontinued. But otherwise, we've seen cases where such things, where yes, paying a penalty is just what you could say, or you have these schemes where you have that excused for making something which you have done wrong. So in such cases, the skewed reward risk ratio will always encourage this behavior. And what are your chances of getting caught? So matter of attitude, I think attitude plays a very key part. What is the values, what is the morals, what is the culture, what is the culture in the organization, poor controls, again rationalization, it's all about how you play it out in your mind. It's all also a mindset issue, and that's where the classic theory is that you have the 10-80-10 rule, where 10% of the people will be highly ethical, not commit any ethical violation ever. 10% people would be completely unethical and will always, despite whatever the situation or not, be 101% unethical. And then you have the 100%, 80% in the midway, who are fence sitters, who would twist here and there. depending on the pressure, opportunity, rationalization, their capability to conduct it, similar to what it would be to a fraud, but the same principles would apply because fraud also stems from somebody who is having a complete lack of ethics. So this is where somebody can uh, rationalize what he did wrong. Okay, this I was done a great disservice, so I should basically pay back. They deserve it. Many such cases which you have seen of people who have committed crimes, and as they say, the journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. The journey of a big fraudster starts with a petty ethical violation which he has done, and nobody has nipped it in the bud at the right time. And there was nothing in the organization which had a 100% 0% zero tolerance for all these ethical violations. So that's where it would all start from. So it's not about the amount, it's about the thought process, it's about the intent, it's about the means which you have done to achieve howsoever good the end may be. So that's where I think one needs to brainstorm and really set this right. Greed,
So
I
I
think
would
one.
just like to add on, sir. I would like to add on, as you rightly said, these are the causes. But some perspectives, maybe some other perspective, you may have a good moral, you have a right attitude, you have ethical behavior, you are very honest, you have high integrity. But at a time, so there is always a fear among maybe a professional as an employee. There's a fear of lose of job or fear of having losing that assignment, and this is all because there is a inadequate immunity available to maybe practitioner or maybe employee, or there is no right set of tone. So even you have a good moral attitude, good integrity, but because immunity is not available, enough inadequate immunity is there. So what happen if I speak out? So
See,
there is
I
always
think
fear of job. So
so.
these are the things. Sometimes even say I may be very ethical, I have a very high moral, I have a courage to speak, I have a courage to conviction, but I know, but there is a one fear. If I speak, I will be out of the job. If I speak, I will be out of the assignment, because there is no right degree of immunity available for management, or there may not be a right set of tone at the top, which is sometimes missing, sir. I'm just sharing my experience. So this is the dilemma. Sometimes we professionals find it. So I don't know how you agree or disagree. I'm happy you agree or disagree on this, but would like to have your views on this, sir, please.
So, so over a period of time, as a professional, I have also committed a lot of mistakes. Now when you are doing an audit, obviously, with the paucity of time, you can't check a lot of things. You would obviously miss out certain things where there could be errors later on. What has only saved me from maybe, see, anybody and a regulator can view the glass as half empty, or he can view it as half full. The only thing which has saved me is the fact that I've been at complete transparency, no conflict of interest, no intent behind doing anything, and as I would say is 101% integrity, which is non-negotiable, and that would save you from a lot of issues, because it's always when you see when you will be made a scapegoat for something which is being done by higher ups, or the question is that something which will turn up later on, whether you can get a good night's sleep for that. And the other part is whatever, as I said, go comes, it goes round and round. Whatever has done, as you sow, so shall you reap. So if you have kept quiet and if you have allowed things to happen, technically at some point of time you are also an abettor to that crime, when you had the competency and the capability to raise the issue. So that's what the first second poll question which I asked is that if such an ethical violation is happening in your organization, will you basically raise your voice against it and have this heard, or maybe whether it doesn't concern you, you didn't do it, you'll keep quiet, you will quit immediately, or you will wait for the right time that you may get a job and then push out. Maybe difficult in the pandemic time for a lot of people. So this is a real ethical dilemma, but that's what and which I kept. But I again state this is, see, when you are in doubt, I think just listen to your heart. I think just listen what we call as to your inner conscience or that antarayatma, and do what you really feel is the right thing to do, even when you are all alone. Nobody else is doing it, and it really
Absolutely.
pays. It really pays. I think I've been at IIA
Absolutely.
where
Absolutely.
people have just recommended you, and it's not networking. It's not because as professionals you can't even advertise and sell your services. It's all purely on the quality and the level of your thought leadership, combined with your values. So as I said again, I have that acronym which I use personally. I don't like to wear by it. I say you hurt mad with your CCTV, and I mean when you're hurting mad is being helpful, useful, and relevant at all times with your talents, and man is to make a difference. And I use the another acronym as CCTV is with your credibility, competency, trust, and the values you bring on the table. I think for a professional, I think if he's always living to stay relevant by complete upskilling, upgrading, reskilling, and maybe integrity, as I said, is completely non-negotiable. I think a lot of these issues will not come. Uh,
Absolutely.
there are, I think, the classic case of an example which they always used to illustrate in any of these ethics seminars is of the Wipro chairman Aziz Premji, who they said never used to give a bribe to any of his, at that time point of time he used to have his oil business. So none of his trucks used to pay any bribes at the octroi, and they used to be put on hold for a long time. And after some time, it so happened that because of his trucks piling up at the octroi post, the traffic there, the traffic snarl increased, and it used to affect other people. So what used to happen is, to just avoid that, the Wipro trucks used to be allowed to go very clearly without even paying that bribe, because they had stood for some long time on what they felt it as right and just. I think so that path may be tough, but it's that you don't have any competition there. I think the competition is much lesser. So I think it's a classic poem by, I think, William Wordsworth. If I stand corrected by the years, is I took the road less traveled, and that's where it made all the difference. So it's something same with ethics. I think the competition is much less. It may be a short time pain for maybe a long term gain. So are you a big time player, or you would be a short time, I would say, a big time investor or a short time trader? I think that's the choice. So that's where I would.
Very well explained, sir. Very well explained, and thank you so much. Explaining thing in a little more greater details. Thank you, Abhijit. We can move on, sir, please.
So then the who are the stakeholders? Everyone and everybody under the sun. I think the suppliers, customers, regulators, the society, the environment, the shareholders, and the planet all have something or the other to contribute, and we have to contribute it to all. So we need to balance everybody's interest. I think look at the larger good, and you would be doing something. So nothing much to add. So how do we set this right? How do we set the right culture, the right structure? So the ethical
Sir,
culture.
can we just take a hold? Just one request to all the participants. Meanwhile, Abhijit ji, carry on with this presentation and issues. I request all the participants. Meanwhile, they can have their questions to be posted, online. They may have the questions in the chat box, please. Sir, you may please carry on. I was requesting participants to have their questions, doubt, difficulties, any advice, any guidance needed. So they, meanwhile, we speak on the issues. They can have their own questions, so we can screen that and we can discuss that once we get over with the presentation, please. So over to you, sir, please.
So setting the right culture and the structure, I think, uh, So various organizations have a clear post of chief ethics officer. Various, you could have various other designations. There was one organization where there was a post of a person with a designation as a chief smiles officer. So this was something very interesting, and I think something which I really enjoyed just listening to his designation. But yes, you could have a chief culture officer, a chief ethics officer, a chief morals officer. You could have any adjective, and maybe just add the word executive or the officer or anything to it, and you could have it. But one is, it's not just having a structure in place, it's like having a design, but it's not having the operative effectiveness in place. So it's like we had this scheme where the Swachh Bharat mission, where you had a huge number of toilets created. The design was there, but there was no water inside, so the operative effectiveness was complete zero. So same way, a structure, yes, you could design a great structure, you could have a great consultant giving you all the structures around, but yes, do you really have the right people at the right time and the right place to actually do your job for you? I think that's the key issue. Training, sensitization, awareness, the more you keep on speaking about it, the more you keep on following it. So it's something, make this sensitization, awareness, and training completely. So one point is that as an IIA, we have these ethics training. Technically, if I look back in my organization, or if you look back in your organization, or in the organizations which you are auditing, how many trainings on ethics are actually being handled? You might have trainings on money laundering because they are mandatory, but they would speak from a technical perspective. You would have trainings from the soft skill side, which would speak on something where you need to be more efficient and productive. But really, how many trainings on ethics as an organization at the grassroots level, especially in the areas where these are vulnerable to all these ethical dilemmas, is one have you set up? So it's walking the talk, it's the tone at the top which is rightly setting. So if you have your bosses basically setting up a bad example, I think people down the line will follow suit. I think very commonly known that people don't leave organizations, they leave bad bosses. So it's how ethical and how effective you are as a leader, which would actually play the key role. Zero tolerance for any violations. How effective is your whistleblower in place? You have a whistleblower, but I've seen banks for years and years where there are no complaints. And again, the complaints is, the quality of complaints isn't where that should be. What is expected as a spirit of a whistleblower for a complaint? I mean, yes, you have seen some large scams come out of whistleblowers, but by and large, as you say, the threat of intimidation is pretty strong. The fact that you could be on the back foot and have to pay for it. Yes, there have been cases where whistleblowers have had to face the brunt of maybe attacks or job losses, and that's something which needs to be clearly set right. Incentivizing, rewarding, recognizing the right behavior is something which looks good to be done theoretically, but is it done? So a lot of things when we are talking about, as I said, ethics, good to talk about, but what is the action? So show me the action on the ground. So that's where the Nike slogan, just do it. It's not just talk, it's just walk the talk. So are we really putting in practice these places? So at various points of time, whenever I have done an ethics audit and there have been issues, I think one of the most common response we have got from the auditee is noted. And it's noted for what? I really don't know. It's noted for non-compliance or it's noted for compliance. And when will it be complied or not complied, and who would comply by what date? It's not just stated. So noted is possibly one of the best ways of brushing aside an issue which you have raised. And ideally, what do you do? At what levels do you escalate if things like this are not set right? And if basically, as you said, if you have to complain against the very person whom has made that violation, and if he's the person who's in charge of resolving the complaints, then I feel only God can save the organization, or maybe even God can't save that organization. So incentivize, reward, and recognize the right behavior, but is this done rightly or is it done at all? The minimis non curat lex, the law does not take into account trivials. That's what this maxim means. And yes, materiality plays a very big role as far as a stat audit is concerned. So the true and fair view or the material misstatements is what really matters when you are a stat auditor. But when you are an internal auditor, or when you are talking about ethics, you are talking about frauds. It's not the amount which matters. It's the intent which matters, and even an attempt which went wrong because maybe something took place which prevented this from happening. Again, the act which was wrong in itself is one which needs to be looked into and set right. So this maxim may strictly not apply when we are talking of ethics. Now,
So just
what
one
can
point. So one point before we carry on, I think recently in June 2021, SEBI has also, increased the incentive to the whistleblower, which was
yeah,
raised from 1 crore to 10 crore. So
yes.
even regulator are also playing the role to see that how unethical practice, so whistleblower can do it. So they divided 10 CR. That is a different question. How much cases, how much things have been whistleblown to at SEBI level, but it is a good incentivize from a regulator. So I thought just to add on here, please.
Great. So that's where I think the clear is: do you really have the courage of conviction to really call, as I said, going ahead to call a spade, or whether you would, I think it all boils down to the whole question is whether you'll keep quiet because you're not a party to it, or you raise the voice. I think that's where it all matters. I think it's one of the key. That's where the component, when I said courage, is also a key virtue as far as ethics is concerned. So where are you on the ethical maturity curve? So somewhere is you could actually measure where you are on the ethical maturity curve, and that's what, as evolved organizations, they would do. As internal auditors, you would attempt to set parameters where you would ideally define levels at where you could be. It could be level 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or whatever. As you have the risk maturity curves, or you could design your own definitions of what this would be. Have your own parameters. You could customize it. You could structure it to your organization and define the ethical maturity curve, and you could obviously map your organization to it, or maybe you could have functions mapped to it, or maybe your geographical locations mapped to it. Depends on how you would do it, how you would take it up, but at least you could do a start and take it up, and maybe, or if there is a position of a chief ethics officer, maybe suggest him to do it, or he would be already doing it, maybe how you would refine it much better. Then the normal gap analysis, what we do, what is the ethical gap analysis? Again, the gap between what's the risk, what's the control in place, and what's the gap, what's the gross risk or the inherent risk, what are the controls, the design and the operative effectiveness, and what's finally the gap or the threat or the vulnerability, and what's the control which you have. Do you have corrective controls, collaborative controls, deterrent controls in place to ensure that there are no ethical violations? Again, are you benchmarked to best practices? what are the best practices which are followed across organizations. So that's where I think we thought one of the best ways to benchmark it to best practices is have an open mic session where somebody could share the best practice which he feels is being done in his organization, which is unique and which could be a great value add for somebody to take on subsequently and just implement it the very next day or maybe right away in his organization if he can. Ethics, culture audit, surveys about how ethical people are, having a lot of polls and finding out. Actually, again, there'll be a lot of cliche answers given to it because something people would idealistically want to be in that situation, but maybe the demands of time actually not, or maybe the pressures as Chetan rightly point out. Again, a classic example which we could see is on the Mumbai roads or Indian roads. You see an accident, somebody badly hurt. How would people react and try to help that person around with first aid, or maybe taking him or rushing him to the nearby hospital, or just watch the fun, or maybe at a very horrific level, just keep on taking selfies about it and sharing it on the social media. So that's where it says a lot about your attitude. It says a lot about your values. And ethics is a lot about values and culture. Again, it would depend on what type of employees you really want in the organization. So at the time of employee screening or at the time of induction itself, how do you spread that tone which is there, the strict non-compromise for any violation. So you said it right at the very beginning, at the very grassroots level at which you want to set it right and walking the talk. Any audit around how the talk is actually walked about, or the tone at the top, specific reporting on those areas, whether they are really taken up, whether they would be really wanted to be taken up for audit. Again, hotlines address ethical dilemmas. What exactly are the ethical dilemmas which an organization will face? So, like you have a risk register, you could have a register, a universe, a library of all those ethical dilemmas, and what could be the best ways to meet that. Maybe an FAQs which could be put up. This is where, as auditors, both internal, external, we could help an organization build around that. Same way, the recording of contentious issues, similar to ethical dilemmas, but something what had happened. So in a lot of organizations, especially frauds which happened, the learnings which came out of frauds have to be circulated around. Same way, any ethical gaps, any ethical violations, any ethical dilemmas, any contentious issues which are faced, whether these are recorded and whether these are circulated across the organization to basically ensure that this doesn't happen again the next time. So the classical, I think, the internal audit theory on the cow fell in the ditch, which I've been hearing for long, is if the cow falls in the ditch, the first thing you do is to get her out of the ditch. The second thing is you find why she fell in the ditch, and the next and the most apt thing is to ensure she doesn't fall in the ditch again. So if there is cockroach in the room. It's not that that's the only cockroach in the room. So find out why the cockroach came in the room in the first place, and ensure you have all your hygiene set right, so that there are no more cockroaches again in the room. So same way is with ethics. If there is a violation, is it, even if there is a simple violation, is it that you are ignoring it and excusing it because this was first time, or you are nipping it in the bud right itself, or because it was for a trivial amount that this is being excused. So again, this is something where you would really need to set this right. So whether at various cases that whether you would get something as a matter of right, or this is because it's something which is in the nature of a reimbursement, for which you would get this only if you have spent this. So even small accounting treatments or accounting reimbursements which come up have very small petty accounting ethical violations which one needs to know, and the more they are nipped at the smaller level, the more you prevent them from growing into all those dinosaurs or those monsters which would happen later on. So as I say, everything has changed. The pandemic, they all say that this is a world which is now before Corona, after Corona, BC, AC. This is a post-pandemic world where everything has changed. But technically, ethics again is non-negotiable. It's again something which is absolutely mandatory. No compromises there. So to that extent, nothing has changed. The world is becoming maybe more VUCA than it ever was, more disrupted than it ever was. As they say, it's not the survival of the fittest, it's the survival of the fitter among the fittest. At times, you would even be the last man standing. You would technically see a lot of consolidations happening, which is already going on in industry, and as Chetan also rightly pointed out, jobs could be at premium, and due to consolidation, the head position would only be one, and you could have some heads ruling, but that's inevitable. If you are better than the best, I think there's no need to worry, and absolutely, if you have ethics to add to all of that, then there's absolutely I think you have no competition at all. The masked economy, yes, you more screened out, and that's where you will have to screen out in this economy all the ethical violators. I think this will pay off in the long run, definitely. The dwindling sales, the profit pressures, the cutthroat competition means that it's the survival of the fitter among the fittest. It also means that it's the survival of the most ethical ones among every one of us. So ethics again, it's completely non-negotiable. Risks everywhere. Everyone knows about risks, and as I always say, every risk needs to be de-risked, and every risk can be de-risked. If it can't be de-risked completely, it can be de-risked to a level where we could have it within our risk tolerance, definitely. So just to wrap up, doing the right thing isn't always easy. Doing the right thing is difficult, but doing the right thing isn't impossible. So it's all about what you do when no one's watching. You may be all alone when you are doing it, but as rightly said, there is no competition. Call spade a spade. Really, a spade is a spade and needs to be called as such. Have a very clear conscience and the courage of conviction. I think one of the key attributes of ethics is to have a strong courage. And as you sow, so shall you reap. What goes around comes around, and it comes around round and round. So what you do, it gets paid back maybe in the same life itself. It's the law of karma, the law of dharma. All of that spirituality is it all comes around in the same life. So do good, be good, and always be at your ethical best. I think means should never justify the ends. So even your actions speak louder than words, and actions are the ones which matter. So please walk the talk. And as I always said, genesis of a large crime always starts with a petty theft. So please ensure that these violations are nipped right in the bud. And when you are in doubt, I think listen to your heart, listen to your conscience. And if I were to put it in Hindi, I think अंतरात्मा की आवाज सुनो. And the classical dialogue I would quote from Salman Khan कि एक बार commitment कर ली कि तो मैं अपने आप की भी नहीं सुनता. So ideally, if you decided, if you have to be ethical, I think that there is yes, it is either here or there. There is nothing in between. So you can either be a person of integrity, a person of complete trust, or You just can't be. It's either here or there. There's no midway path. So just bear this in mind. Thank you for giving me a patient listening, and we'll throw the floor open either for questions or as per the sequence. Anyone has something to share, maybe they can take a minute and maybe share. So we could have a 5 minute or a 10 minute as Chetan could moderate that, and maybe
Yeah,
the time.
yeah. Yeah, so I request Mainas to open up the, unmute everyone, and whomsoever would like to share the best practice or sharing of experience, it is open for all. So Mainas, may I request you to unmute all? So anybody wants to share their views, we are happy to hear any best practice, any experiences on ethics, dilemma, any issues they come across in the career. We are happy to listen collectively. So floor is open to all. Mainaz, have you opened up for everyone? Unmute.
Yes, we have unmuted them. They're supposed to click on the red mic and talk
Okay,
when it is green.
excellent. ठीक है. So friends, let's come forward. Just share your name. You do not to you don't have to share your name. You don't have to share your company. You just share your experience or any best practice you would like to share. So floor is open for all. We will wait another 3 to 5 minutes. Else we will post to them questions we have in our window. We will take through those questions. So open to all. Another 2 to 3 minutes. We'll hear from you, please. Anybody want to share?
If they are
Any
unable to
comment?
unmute, they can raise their hands.
Yes, anyone would like to add on any best practice, sharing of experience on ethics? So far, so good you have come across in your career. So other participants will get benefited out of your experience, best practice. Mainas will keep it this open for next 2 to 3 minutes, maybe up to 4:50. Thereafter, we push to question answer session. There are few questions which come. We will request Abhijit to answer on those questions posed by our participants, please.
Sorry.
I think apart from sharing of best practices, I think what can also be handy is also sharing of worst practices which one shouldn't do. So it's not just restricted to those. It's also restricted. It's also open for don'ts which one should ideally not do. So this is something which they've seen in the course of their career, which they would not like this to be done, or they would like people to be wary of that. They ensure that this is nipped in the bud or pointed out in course of their audits, right? Chetan, so it's
Sure.
not just the best practice, it's also sharing of bad practices which should not be done at any point of time.
Absolutely, absolutely rightly said so, sir. Let's we are waiting to hear from our friends if anybody would like to add on.
Hello, Chetan.
हाँ जी sir.
Nilesh Likide.
Hi Nilesh ji, yeah, you can share your experience, please.
Yeah. So basically, just wanted to have one thought on my experiences. Basically, one of the companies I joined, and there was a team with me who, after some days, went on some audit and put a claim of expenditure in front of me for approval. So I saw that statement, and I know that that is not true. So I kept it on hold, and then the people started asking me, "What about our claim? It is not approved." Saying that I cannot approve this because you have not traveled by the mode which you have claimed. Then the argument was that no, we are entitled. Well, you can be entitled for anything, but I will not approve because you haven't traveled by that. Because once or twice I traveled with you, and I know what mode we have all traveled. That was more convenient mode than what you have claimed. That is why we went, and even the class, that first class which you are claiming, that is also not true because we haven't traveled. So, it becomes very important that in such a small expenses, claims, and all, which are maybe not even material from the point of view, but it is most important that ourselves, we need to be very, very particular about what we are claiming and what we are putting at the company's claims and all, to have our image clear. So then my boss asked me why you are holding on this petty issue. Well, I will certainly hold on this petty issue because auditors' expenses are more minutely seen by the account team and all these things, and they will all laugh at us because just by looking at these vouchers, they will come to know that this is a false claim which we are putting. Then what right we have to ask somebody on the ethics and wrongdoings? That is our role. So he also understood that and then said that, okay, you please do whatever you want. But I am not going to approve unless and until they change the vouchers. And finally, the vouchers were changed and appropriately claimed. So that is how the message is that even in the minutest of the things, we should be very particular, and our image should be much more cleaner than what it is for others.
Thank you so much, Nilesh, for sharing a very nice example on the ethical value, which you said. Rather, we are the people who have to set the example and not to become an example. Thank you so much for sharing your views, Nilesh. We appreciate that, please. Anybody else would like to say anything? Any views? We are happy to hear. There are 100 people, 100 plus odd people are here to. Yeah, please. Yeah, who is this, please? Yeah, you can speak. Enas, can you check who wanted to share the experience? I think raise the hand and then I think
Yes, it
someone
was
is.
Abhijit Jadhav, but I'm not able to see him at all.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear
Hello?
you. Please, you can. Yeah, we can. You can speak, please. We can hear you all.
Okay, so my question was, since we have a whistleblower system in our department or in our organization, so is it possible that we update it like every month, mentioning that this was a case and we have done this thing, so that people will be aware about the situation and they will know that we are strictly looking towards the things which are going around in the company, so that people will stay in a ethical manner, and this will be an update to overall company employees. Can we do this thing as in like best practices?
So
Abhijit,
you want? Yeah.
sure.
So
Abhijit, can you take the question, please?
one is definitely yes. Again, it will be situational and contextual as to what should be the frequency, whether it should be monthly or maybe quarterly. But quarterly, definitely yes. And again, how do you actually communicate it? And so the communication is to create confidence in people to come out and say that their identity is being protected at all times. They will not be
Yes,
victimized and action
yes,
is being taken against the wrongdoer. So yes, communication, the right communication in the right manner is absolutely needed, and it's obviously I would not say again that's a best practice. I would say it should be a must-have. It's not just a good to have. So it should be in the normal course, not just as a best practice. The only caveat I would say is whether it needs to be monthly or bi-monthly or quarterly is something where because if it's keeps on coming monthly, then it may at times lose its sheen. So maybe bi-monthly or quarterly is what I would look at in an organization. But definitely yes.
okay, thank you.
Thank you so much for the question. We appreciate anybody else. We'll take another two more open mic questions, and we are happy to hear from your friends. Anybody else would like to share the views or any difficulty? We are happy to answer them.
So I'll go next. I'm Naveen. So
I know.
the way our organization has lift up our culture is that We have open door policies where we are not restricted to have a hierarchy where I have to communicate things to a manager or anyone. I mean, we have been given access to our leadership directly or HR directly. So any kind of non-ethical aspects, we are, we don't feel afraid to walk up to our senior leaders or HR to share it. So which I believe having such a culture of an open door policy gives us an opportunity and keeps our system as clean as possible.
Perfect. I think that's the way the organization should be. Most of the organizations should be like this organization. Unfortunately, in a few promoter-driven organizations, that isn't the case. I think open door policy, which you talked about, is the best policy. Where one can freely walk into the cabin of a CEO or any of the head HR and just speak his mind out. I think the only note is that it shouldn't be that it just becomes too casual and at times the sanctity of the senior chair is taken for granted. That's the only. Otherwise, it's perfect. Anything you would like to add?
Thank you. No, that's fine, sir. You're rightly said so. And anybody else would like to have any views, or should we come to the last leg of our discussion today? We'll come straightway to the question answer. Anybody else there? Anybody out there? Last question we can take quickly. Open my question. Anybody out there? Sujata?
Hello, am I audible?
Yeah, you're audible. Speak little loudly, please, Sujata.
Okay. I have a question like which department will be. My question is
You're
which
not audible
department.
properly. Could you speak little loudly, please?
Hello, am I audible now?
Yeah, better.
Okay. So my question is which department will be investigating on this whistleblower policy? If like any person is having any personal grudge or something, anyway, one department will be cross-checking whether this information is right or wrong. Right? So my question is which department will be doing that? The authenticity of this information, anonymous information, usually in company.
So, Chetan, would you take it up or can I answer this?
Okay, so you please answer. Actually she is not audible to me rightfully. You may, if you heard her question right. So I may appreciate, sir. You may please answer her.
So generally in organizations, the whistleblower policy also states the mechanism for investigation. Who would investigate it? Not necessarily it is mandated for the audit team to do that. So specifically one, if the complaint is rightly said against an audit member itself, and ideally if the audit team generally looks after these investigations, then there's a clear conflict of interest. As Percy already said that in this where he has to investigate and it included his former boss, then you are just out. So there, ideally the policy itself will decide it. The best is to have a cross-functional team who would verify it. Again, whistleblower, there is technically a committee which will look into it. The committee may decide who's the right people who could be in a team who would verify that. A cross-functional team is the best, and I would always say that a legal person and an audit person should be in that team, because finally you are having something where if it could be a court case or a litigation or going ahead, then you need to have a legal perspective. So as they have in the POSH committee always an external person and a lawyer, because if it goes to a court of law, how is the evidence being led in the court of law? That's really key. So what is evidence? There's a lot of difference between evidence which we take as auditors as per SA 540 and evidence which is really led and presented before a court, before a judge for a decision. So that's where I would have a cross-functional team with an audit guy and a legal guy definitely there in the team. Maybe yes, a risk guy, a compliance guy, or maybe an IT guy, or whoever, the HR guy. It could be a cross-functional team, but the policy usually decides who would be the team. But it's not the birthright of an audit department to only investigate the claims, though yes, logical, and in most of the organizations by default it would be left to the auditors to only investigate it, because they are used to do such verificatory roles. So it's a default audit team who does it if nothing is specified, but the ideal is a cross-functional team.
Thank you, Abhijit, for setting the tone and sharing your views. So, friends, we close the open mic session. I think we took almost 5 questions, and now come to the last leg of our discussion today. Abhijit, I will read out few important questions which raised and flagged by our participants. I will take, in the interest of time, I will take now 2-3 questions. The first question, I think I am seeing there are a lot of BOG members, even presidents and other BOG members I am seeing in the participants. So there is one question posed to them: how IIA will support a member? How IIA will support a member who pointed out unethical practice of some organization? So how the member will be protected from IIA when he whistleblow any unethical practice which they saw in their organization?
So I think this is a very valid question. I think that if he's a chartered accountant, I would feel is how would the institute stand behind such a person?
Absolutely.
So let's say something does something wrong against a chartered accountant. Let's say something does wrong against Abhijiti Sanzgiri, chartered accountant. It's not an attack on Abhijiti Sanzgiri as an individual. It's an attack on a chartered accountant. So it should something affront all chartered accountants. So if it's an attack on the IIA member, or if it's an attack on an internal auditor who's a member of an IIA and who's standing by the code of ethics, then I firmly believe that the IIA should support him what come may. So again, it's directly maybe Percy and Chetan as the office bearers to take this ahead. But I firmly believe if any member would ask them for support, knowing them, they would definitely stand by them, and whatever best they could do in their powers and in the powers of IIA to help such a member, they would definitely do it. I have that much confidence in both of them.
Absolutely, sir. Absolutely. So there is a next question. There is a next question from Lakshmi Narayan. Can an auditor disclose a deviation to a regulatory authority when it has been accepted by audit board?
This is highly subjective. So what is the deviation? Now, if the deviation is accepted by the audit board, it is still a deviation. If it's a regulatory deviation and it's accepted, so let's assume that let's say in a bank there is an NPA to be disclosed and it's not disclosed, and the board has accepted it. Just by the fact that the board has accepted it, it cannot condone a violation and make it a non-violation. So the auditor will still have to disclose it. Now, where is his duty to disclose? Will he disclose it in the auditor's report, or technically there is a duty cast upon the auditor as per the Companies Act to disclose a fraud above maybe mandatory above a certain level? If it falls in all that and if it is in that category, then he should follow the law. The board, by accepting a wrong, it doesn't become a right. It's a wrong per se. So it's again contextual and what that wrong is. So if it's something like what you could say is somebody has exceeded his powers, and let's say the board has ratified that, then maybe this is a transaction. So you have to say whether transactions which have come to your notice are within the powers of that organization or the powers of the bank. In this case, it's not within the powers of the bank, but it's ratified now. So now it's within the powers and it's accepted. So in such cases where contextually, yes, the board can forgive this and that wrong is no longer a wrong, but where it's a wrong per se and will remain a wrong per se despite the board accepting it, I really don't think they would. They don't. Board just doesn't have a power to condone a statutory violation.
Thank you so much, Abhijit. And I don't see other more questions on this. And even anybody has a question, any participant, they can always write to our IIA. We are happy to answer them over the even on emails. So thank you so much, Abhijit, to be with us and enrich the knowledge of our members of IIA who participated for the session. You enlightened so much with a lot of practical examples to them, a lot of practical scenario we discussed, a lot of benchmark good practice, what should be the way forward, how to approach So it was. I'm sure we are thankful to you on behalf of my sincere thanks to you, Abhijit. Thank you so much.
So Chetan, just there's one question which I'm seeing, which is just in front, so I'm just seeing it. So the question was that if an auditor detects a regulatory violation, then should he reach out to the regulatory authorities when the regulatory authorities reach out to him, or should you go out proactively and report it to the regulatory authorities? Again, contextual or subjective depending on how serious the issue is. Again, a lot of regulators also mandate what they should, as an auditor, report specifically directly. So in case of fraud, there is a very clear mandate in banks for auditors to report to the regulator directly. Same is the case in the case of IIA or SEBI, where the auditors can be whistleblowers and they can report. So obviously, in such cases, he'll have to be proactive. I really don't think proactiveness is obviously a much better form of control than a reactive control in normal case anyway. So unless it's a petty issue, in such case where materiality matters, though it might be an ethical violation, and in ethics the pettiness doesn't matter. But as far as reporting to the regulator is concerned, yes, if it's a key audit matter, obviously you have your SA 701 to report it officially. But if you need not wait, and it's what you call an all-pervasive issue where it's not just a qualification, but it's sort of a disclaimer in that nature, and where you feel it's just and right to report it to the regulator, then by all means you should do it as proactively as you can. But not it's these are exceptions and should be also treated carefully.
Thank you so much, Abhijit, once again for you taking the last question as well. And on behalf of I really thankful to you for sharing your insights and spending last 2 hours with a lot of practical insights connected with this a little difficult, maybe easy to spell the word as ethics, but how difficult to practice and how to face it, how to make it zero, how the courage you need to have it, courage of conviction. And I'm thankful to all my participants who are with us last 2 hours. And we are committed at IIA to deliver such better quality programs in the way forward. So thank you all. Thank you so much. Thank you. We just formally will close the session now. Thank you so much. Thank you, Abhijit. Thank you, Benas. Thank you, the team. And thanks to all the participants here. Thanks a lot. See you soon once again on this IIA forum. Thank you.
Thank you.